Huge news from the Supreme Court today, where P Chidambaram has finally been granted bail by the Supreme Court in the INX Media case from the Enforcement Directorate. Now, as you know, he'd already been given bail when it came to the CBI's case against him regarding INX Media, but the ED matter was still going. He had not been given bail. He was still in custody. He was still in Tihar jail as a result. It's been 106 days of custody in total, and finally today the court has let him go. The bench was Justices Bhanumathi, Bopanna and Hrishikesh Roy. They have set aside the Delhi High Court order which had rejected his bail. They've accepted certain things which were a bit controversial about that judgment are correct. So the main grounds for appeal which had brought Chidambaram to the Supreme Court were that the Delhi High Court said that even though the regular triple test of bail, that he's not going to abscond, that he's not going to threaten witnesses, that he's not going to tamper with evidence, that even though this triple test was satisfied because this was an economic offence, and therefore the gravity of the offence justified keeping him in jail because society would have a problem with him being released. Now, the important thing is that the Supreme Court has said that this is not entirely incorrect. It is possible to say that an economic offence is a grave offence which can justify keeping a person in custody and not granting them bail, but the way the High Court arrived at it included certain conclusions which should not have been there at a bail hearing. That these were decisions on merit rather than the sort of prima facie arguments which come up during a bail hearing, and that therefore that was incorrect to do. Now, as a result, they've said he needs to be released. There are certain conditions, so it's not, and some of these conditions are pretty standard par for the course in bail orders, but some of them are a little bit more stringent. So, for instance, a regular one is that he has to give rupees 2 lakh as a bond. He has to have 2 sureties. There's also the fact that he can't travel. Obviously, here he has to specifically also hand over his passport into them. A slightly irregular one, something which is different, is that he must not give any statements to the press, which means that we will not be hearing from Chidambaram today as he leaves from Tihar jail. He will not be allowed to make any detailed statement about either the case or, obviously, you'd imagine what's been happening with him in jail. His lawyer, Abhishek Manu Singhvi, gave a brief statement here, but that's probably as much as we're going to get from the Chidambaram team on this whole incident. There's also the fact that they have included a specific condition saying that he must not attempt to influence any of the witnesses. Now, this can sometimes take place in cases, but here it was specifically included because there was an allegation by the ED that he'd been trying to influence witnesses while he was in jail, which was obviously a difficult ground to understand, but it's something the judges have taken cognizance of. The judges also decided not to look at the government's material in a sealed cover, but then realized they would have to because they had to look at what the Delhi High Court order said, and ended up perusing it for their order as well. Now, they specify that this will not affect the main trial itself. Like any of their observations, they should not be construed in a way to try and ensure that Chidambaram is considered innocent when it comes to his actual trial in this case. There was an attempt by the Enforcement Directorate to ensure that there were lines also included in the judgment to say that there will be no influence on the other accused, like Karti Chidambaram, but it's not entirely clear yet whether Justice Bopanna, who authored the judgment, agreed to do that. Stay tuned with the Quint for all the updates as Chidambaram gets released from Tihar jail and over the course of the day, and we'll obviously be keeping track of where the fallout of this takes us.